This is Roppongi Rocks, and today we have Jeff Kollman on the Roppongi Rocks headquarters sofa. Welcome, Jeff.
Ohio gozaimasu.
Great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
You're here on a tour with Eikichi Yazawa at the moment.
Yeah.
You're touring, it's a very big tour across Japan, including a whole bunch of shows at Budokan.
Yeah, 4 shows at Budokan. We played last night, and we played the night before and filmed it. And I think it's somewhere between 20 and 25 Budokan shows since 2014. So, and this tour is, I think, 18 shows altogether. A couple shows at Messe Arena in Fukuoka, went up to Sapporo. Tokyo's our home base, but you know, we're going all over Japan, so I think we got 3 shows left.
It's been quite a successful tour, it seems.
Yeah. Half the bands was a couple Brits, a couple Americans. Toshi Yanagi from Jimmy Kimmel's show, he's playing guitar. And Jeff Dugmore, who's played with everybody, British drummer. He's actually Scottish, but lives in Great Britain. Yeah, it's a killer band.
Indeed. And you obviously played with a lot of major bands. I mean, UFO, Mogg, Asia, Glenn Hughes, Marco Mendoza, Michael Schenker. You know, you played with a lot of major players, and you've earned your spot. I mean, obviously you have the talent and the chops to do this, but do you ever feel overwhelmed when you're actually standing on stage next to these legends who are mostly older than you, and they were already famous when you stepped in, so to speak?
Right. You know, when I left Toledo, I got to meet Michael Schenker and work with him, and then 2 weeks later, I got a call from Mike Varney, who hooked me up with Phil Mogg, and that was like, to go from Toledo to suddenly I'm writing songs with Phil, and I'm in a room. My best friend Dan calls me, says, "Dude, you're playing in UFO." And it was going to be UFO, the Mogg record, but they decided not to have that name, and that was a little heartbreaking, but I remember, like, you know, pinching myself back then and going, wow, you know. And I think, and I don't know if Dave would agree with this, but for me, it's success is more like, you notice that there's different people around you, they change and they become more influential, more important. Instead of jamming with your buddy in Toledo, there's Chad Smith, and there's this guy, and there's Glenn Hughes, Deep Purple, and it's like your surroundings change, right? Suddenly you're working with David Bowie, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
You know?
totally, yeah.
So yeah, the surrounding changes for the better. So,
Indeed.
yeah.
Speaking of surroundings, I mean, you've been a wingman to many big names, and you continue to do new things, and you keep going back to some of these players that you've been doing a lot of shows and studio sessions with. But is it different as a musician, artist, to be a wingman, so to speak, than to be your own man in your own band?
Yeah, first off, I never considered myself like a sideman for hire, meaning like back in the day when I moved to LA, you wouldn't catch me on like a Britney Spears tour or, you know, Christina Aguilera. I had friends that do those gigs, but they're literally hired just to be background. And I always felt like I chose gigs that I had a vested interest in. Like Alan Parsons, I write and record with Alan. You know, we make records together. Glenn Hughes, we did 2 albums together. So going out on tour with them wasn't just, you know, sideman for hire, you know, and so I guess that is a little bit of the difference. And to pinpoint your question, you know, there's a certain level of freedom that I have when I do my own music, whether it be Cosmosquad or solo music. And, you know, it would be like Steve Vai, he just has complete freedom to be who he is. But, you know, like playing with Alan Parsons, it's fun live because I loved all those great guitar parts that Ian Berenson did, you know. They were so, you could sing every line, and it would be foolish to just improvise and not do it, you know. But at the same time, Alan gives me room to stretch out and do things, so I feel completely fulfilled on that gig. Same with playing with Glenn Hughes. If we happen to do, you know, Burn or Smoke on the Water, I know Smoke is not from his legacy, but I do that solo absolutely note for note because it's so epic, and nobody ever seems to care to do it note for note. So I'm like, I want you to close your eyes and feel like you're here in the studio recording, because, you know, the brilliance of Richie Blackmore, and that's just unbelievable. And I bet he never even cared and played the same solo again. He just went on to something else.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And you're a guitarist, but I think secretly you want to be a bass player, because for not being a bass player, you actually have played bass in Michael Schenker Group and UFO on tours.
Yeah.
So how, is that, you want to be a bass player? Is that the thing?
I enjoy it. I play bass in the studio sometimes, and I have the most respect for bass players. I mean, I remember going up with UFO, and suddenly I'm playing with fingers with an SVT behind me, like, oh, no, give me the pick. This is a man's game, and I'm not quite ready to fill Pete Way's shoes, But it was a blast. I mean, playing bass live is just a blast. You have so much power because you're the bottom end, but you can't slide into something and fake it. If the E's not there on the downbeat, the whole audience is going to know. Guitar players, we can kind of fake it a little bit. So, yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
And you got many bands and projects that you continuously work with, and there's new things coming up. How do you prioritize? Do you have things like you think, okay, if Chad Smith calls, I drop everything, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, if the Chili Peppers called, yeah. Some things are motivated by money, I guess. Right now I'm prioritizing Alan Parsons because I think he's going to do maybe 2 years and then he's going to retire, and that's not like a big secret or anything, but I think, but having said that, I did sub a few shows out because I committed to this Japanese tour, and Eikichi Yazawa is the biggest artist in the history of this country, so it's nice to do 2 months in winter right up to Christmas, so I subbed out Alan's gig to my buddy Jeff Marshall, and they're comfortable with him, so I'm missing out on like 6 or 7 shows, and that's okay. I'll be back with Alan in 2025.
Sounds good. And you played rock, punk, jazz, funk, pop, everything. I mean, country. You played with Lyle Lovett back in the day. Is there anything you prefer? Are you really like a death metal guy deep down, or what are you?
I do like some violence in my metal.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would say the stuff I love the most would be like if you listen to the music of my band Cosmosquad, because we're pushing the envelope harmonically, and it's heavy, it's aggressive, but there's times it's ethereal and like movie music, but it's definitely has a unique thing to it, So I do like doing a lot of different things, but I would say that's, my what I love the most. And playing with Shane Gallus, and
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for stepping into the Roppongi Rocks headquarters.
So much. Yes, what a great place. And they supplied us with that nice cold beer. Oh, it's got some of this.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.